Could Cayden Lindstrom's power forward mold be an intriguing option for the Chicago Blackhawks with the second overall pick?
You're Locked On Blackhawks, your daily podcast on the Chicago Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's poppin', everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Real quick, just a reminder to everyone who's watching this on YouTube right now to hit that like button. Comment down below as well as to whether you think Cayden Lindstrom is truly in the conversation for the Blackhawks at number 2. And also, with Mailbag Monday having a huge return on today's show, go and drop your Blackhawks questions in the comment section down below as well. Obviously, I won't be able to get to them on today's show, but when I roll back Mailbag Monday next week, I'll be sure to answer each and every one of them live on the show. So make sure to go and hit that comment section. And last but certainly not least, make sure you're subscribed to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. I know I'm having a lot of new viewers here on the show with this intriguing conversation around what the Blackhawks could be doing with the second overall selection, along with just some other fun offseason conversations that I'm going to be having regarding the Blackhawks' future and taking that next step in the rebuild. You're not going to want to miss out on that. So make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel. Turn on those push notifications as well to get notified when the episode's uploaded to YouTube each and every day. All right, enough of that. Good morning, everyone. Again, thank you all for joining me on another episode of Locked On Blackhawks, your one-stop shop for all things Chicago Blackhawks. Happy Monday. Hope everyone's weekend treated them well. Hope Mother's Day yesterday treated everyone well. I know we've been getting some much better weather here in the Chicagoland area, so I spent a majority of yesterday outside, which was fabulous. Hope you all got to enjoy some of the lovely weather as well. But back to reality here on Monday, but a very, very intriguing show on tap here this afternoon. Starting things off, as I'm sure you all have noticed by the title of today's episode, I'm going to be getting into yet another 2024 NHL Draft Profile here on the show. I've already gone over both Ivan Demidov and Artem Levshinov. Those were the last two episodes that I dropped last week, so make sure to go and check those out if you haven't done so already to hear what I have to say about the Demidov versus Levshinov debate. Today, though, I thought it would be fitting to get into Cayden Lindstrom's 2024 NHL Draft Profile because I do recognize it's very likely a two-horse race for the Blackhawks at number 2 between Ivan Demidov and Artem Levshinov, the two guys I've already covered. However, if there is a third guy in the mix for the Blackhawks, I believe it should be this man. I believe it should be Cayden Lindstrom because he is very intriguing considering what the Chicago Blackhawks need in their forward group. And that's because he is a big, true power forward mold at 6'4", 215 pounds, turned 18 back in February this year, and had a very, very big time year for his stock, his draft stock with the Medicine Hat Tigers of the WHL. Played in 32 games and had 46 points worth of production, 27 goals and 19 assists in 32 games with the Medicine Hat Tigers for Cayden Lindstrom this year, nearly a goal per game margin. Unfortunately, though, he did suffer a hand injury that forced him to undergo surgery and led to him missing most of the second half of the season. He also dealt with some back problems. Those injuries may cause some concern for some NHL franchises, maybe just with Lindstrom possibly going so high, but ultimately those injuries aren't supposed to hinder his long-term abilities or anything. So I don't think there's any big-time concerns, but when you are kind of splitting hairs at the top of a draft, could be one reason ultimately that some of these franchises elect to go with another player. But some big-time development, big-time boost in terms of the draft stock, like I mentioned, because of Cayden Lindstrom's production this year, because of the great start that he got off to and took a major leap from his first year in the WHL with Medicine Hat, where he had only 42 points in 61 games and just really rounded out his game in those 32 contest of action that he got in before suffering an injury, really just rounding things out, getting better with his skating abilities, adding some playmaking. But all in all, he's just a really good power forward who's a pure goal scorer, along with some good work ethic, good motor, competes very hard, and just has some real big size and skill that is kind of needed in the Blackhawks organization and is always intriguing to other NHL clubs. So that's why Cayden Lindstrom is shaping up to be one of the top prospects in this year's draft. As far as the rankings go, elite prospects have him third. Bob McKenzie have him fifth. Craig Button has him ninth. Tony Ferrari has him fourth. McKean's Hockey has him at fifth. Chris Peters has him at third. Daily Faceoff has him at ninth. And Dauber Prospects has him at four. So widely considered to be a top 10 pick. Most of them have him somewhere inside the top five. As far as the strengths and weaknesses go for Cayden Lindstrom, there is a lot to like about his game. I think the first thing that jumps off, though, about Cayden Lindstrom, outside of the size, obviously, is how well he moves for a player of his size. He's got some really good edge work to kind of dodge opponents and change direction in a hurry. And then when you pair that with his big 6'4" frame, that makes him very, very dangerous. And he also pairs that with some really, really strong puck control. He uses his body so well to shield off of defenders, and he just bounces off of them. It's almost like they're not even there. And while you don't expect him to have that same kind of translation in that department in the NHL as he is in the WHL. Clearly, he's facing some smaller and not grown men, basically. So there's obviously going to be a leap when he does go to the pro scene, but just what he's already able to show us at 17, 18 years of age, mostly as a 17-year-old because he didn't get to play many games when he turned 18 in February. At 17 years of age, the way that he's able to kind of shield himself off, hold on to the puck. He also has a really long reach, so he can kind of keep the puck away from checkers or defenders or anything. And he just all in all takes contact really, really well. Also, I think the best offensive attribute of his is absolutely the shot. He's a pure goal scorer. And he scores them in a lot of different ways. He can score in one-on-ones, just walking into the offensive zone, going one-on-one with a defender. He can beat them wide and drive to the net to score that true power forward style goal. He can also, when there's nothing really going on, he can just flat out beat the opposing goalie with a curl and drag wrist shot. He can drive to the front of the net and finish off rebounds there. And he also shoots one-timers pretty well. Got some time at the right dot as a left-handed shot on the power play for Medicine Hat this year and drops down to a knee pretty comfortably. It just looks like a natural shooting motion out of Cayden Lindstrom. So, yeah, just a high-level scorer. He can score in a lot of different ways, a lot of different varieties. He can score the pretty goals, and he can also go to the front of the net and score the gritty goals at all times. So just a high-level scorer. And what I also love about him is his compete level, his energy that he plays with. Sometimes he will get caught maybe being a bit lackluster in coverage, but when he is engaged, he's excellent. He's really good along the boards, wins a lot of puck battles, and he throws his weight around. He is not scared whatsoever of finishing a check. He'll run through opposing forwards when they have the puck. He'll shield off a defender when they go to check him. He'll throw a reverse check. Like, he's just so big, and he recognizes that and uses it to his advantage in lots of different situations. And I really like to see he uses his size around the front of the net and also along the boards to win puck battles and retrieve possession for his teammates as well. And he has developed some playmaking skills a little bit this year. I still think that's a work in progress, and he's a little bit raw there, but he did show year-by-year progression. I thought he did take a leap, and that may lead some NHL franchises and their scouting departments to be a bit more encouraged about his overall playmaking at the next level than they were just a year ago. I think that's also kind of helped his draft stock. As far as the weaknesses for Cayden Lindstrom, I think first and foremost, it's just a matter of continuing to develop those playmaking and passing skills. Doesn't really see the game. I think he doesn't have those elite offensive instincts like an Ivan Demidov or Artem Levshinov does. I think that's pretty clear that while he is able to dominate at the young level, it's not really with his thinking. It's just because of his maturation, his body size, and just being a physical specimen is mostly what leads to his special abilities. So I think just continuing to round out his game in those areas is going to be important for him. Also, he's a good skater for his size. He has good edge work, but he doesn't possess that blow past you speed. And he also doesn't possess that top level stick handling or stick skills. It's very apparent when you compare him to a prospect of Ivan Demidov there's just a much higher ceiling for a player like Demidov, given the way he thinks the game, the puck handling, the skating. Like it's all high level. Both Demidov and Lindstrom, interestingly enough, don't have like clean or perfect skating form, but I'd take Demidov skating over Lindstrom's any day of the week. So I thought it was just a little bit polarizing when comparing those two players. It's pretty clear that Demidov to me has the much higher upside, but Cayden Lindstrom does play a big grown man's game that I think transitions to the NHL level a little bit easier. And like I said, sometimes he can get caught lacking in defensive coverage. He's engaged and has a pretty good compete level for the most part, but it's just rounding out the game and adding in those little nuances and just getting a little bit more consistent in all areas, just making sure he's doing it on a shift by shift basis. But for the most part, throws his weight around, engage on the defensive side of things. As far as my projection for Cayden Lindstrom, I think he's absolutely going to be a top 10 pick in this year's draft and probably somewhere in the top 6, if I had to guess. He just has that ideal power forward build with enough speed and skill to keep up with the modern day NHL pace and the way that the game is played nowadays. And I think he's just going to be a great goal scorer at the NHL, a good net front presence, top 6 winger. I do feel though, like he is a little bit riskier than Ivan Demidov or Artem Levshinov is, but the upside is still absolutely prevalent. I don't think he's going to be like a puck carrier, a dominant playmaker, but I do think he's a guy with 30 to 40 goal capabilities because of the way he shoots it, the way he can kind of offer himself up in different situations, and the way that he can establish himself in different spots as well on the power play. I think Cayden Lindstrom shapes up to be a 30 to 40 goal scorer, a 60 to 70 point guy at the NHL. But because of those lower playmaking skills, I do ultimately expect him to be a winger more than a center. He has played center in his junior career at the NHL level. I just think, given everything I outlined, it makes too much sense for him to be on the wing. As far as a long-term fit with the Blackhawks, should the Blackhawks be considering him at number 2? And if so, where does he kind of fit in the prospect pool? Well, the reason why I think Lindstrom could be in the conversation at number 2 is because the Hawks need a forward with size and skill. And quite honestly, it's been a need for them for a long, long time. Someone who can go into the offensive zone and when you have to dump it in, can go in, win a puck battle, can go and retrieve it and maintain possession for your team, can also go and win board battles and be scrappy on the cycle in the offensive zone. It feels like for the last handful of years, right? Like the Blackhawks have really missed that type of player ever since Jonathan Toews kind of had to take that step back and Brandon Saad was traded for the first time. If you look at the Blackhawks top 6, it's just been a lot of undersized players. Alex DeBrincat, Patrick Kane, Connor Bedard, Philip Kurashev, Mags Domi, right? Like the list goes on and on and on. And this is why I think Cayden Lindstrom should be considered at number 2. Now, Ivan Demidov, to me, is still absolutely the pick. He has the higher upside. I think he fits better with Bedard, but there is a need for a player like Cayden Lindstrom in a lot of different areas. And I think, pairing him up with Bedard is a good net front presence type of guy. It could be almost like what Zach Hyman and Connor McDavid, I feel like, have established with the Edmonton Oilers. I feel like Cayden Lindstrom could be that for Connor Bedard with the Chicago Blackhawks. And because of those reasons, to me, if I'm being honest here, Cayden Lindstrom is more intriguing to me than Artem Levshinov, mostly because I still think the Blackhawks can come away with a really solid defenseman at number 20, or if they trade up from that pick. I'd really be looking hard at Cayden Lindstrom, though. Again, I don't have him over Ivan Demidov. I believe Demidov is the pick. I'm just more intrigued by Cayden Lindstrom than I am Artem Levshinov. And I've heard, when I posted on X that I was going to be breaking down Cayden Lindstrom's draft profile, there are a lot of Blackhawks fans like, no, he's a Kirby Dach 2.0. And I think that's just so soft, in my opinion, no offense. And I understand it. Like, there's a little bit of Dach scar tissue there. But first off, let me just say, in comparing Kirby Dach and Cayden Lindstrom, I'm much higher on Cayden Lindstrom because he's a goal-scoring power forward, whereas Dach was always like a pass-first power forward. Kind of a weird playing style considering the player mold that he has. But I was okay with the Kirby Dach pick in 2019 because, for the same reason behind Cayden Lindstrom, the Blackhawks need that power forward mold. At some point in time, they're going to need to add that to their forward group. Now, that doesn't mean Cayden Lindstrom should be the pick, but I also don't think people should be freaking out about Cayden Lindstrom because Kirby Dach didn't go well, right? Like, very different situations, very different players. I think Lindstrom is the better prospect between those two, and it's just such a need for the Blackhawks. I get people are scarred by that, but like these are two completely different players 5 years later in the NHL draft, right? Like I don't think Kirby Dach not turning out should have any worries about Cayden Lindstrom. And when it's a need for the Blackhawks, like I think Cayden Lindstrom should be in the mix more than people are giving him credit for. People are really giving a reasonable chance. Again, I'm going to reiterate this. To me, it's Ivan Demidov still at number 2. But Cayden Lindstrom, I think, is the second most intriguing prospect for the Blackhawks at that position because I feel like they're going to come away with a good right-handed defenseman at some point, whether it's at 20, whether they move up from there because of their draft capital. I feel like there's other options for them to get a right-handed defenseman instead of at number 2. So to me, Cayden Lindstrom is the second most intriguing prospect for them at that second overall pick. Will they ultimately end up selecting him? I think it's doubtful, but it's up in the air like it was almost in 2019. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm also not going to rule it out. So there's my third 2024 NHL draft profile here of the Blackhawks offseason. Go and jump in the comment section and let me know what you think of Cayden Lindstrom. Do you agree with my assessment? Do you agree that the Blackhawks could use a player like him? And do you think he could be that player at number 2? Go and let me know down below in the comment section. Very interested to hear what you all have to say about this. But don't go anywhere after you do hit that comment section, because coming up in just a moment, I still have to get into goaltender Petr Mrazek's 2023-2024 report card. But first, I got to talk to you all about Policygenius real quick. With Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million worth of coverage. And some options offer same-day approvals and also avoid unnecessary medical exams. And Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace that helps you both save time and money, so you can provide your family with a financial safety net starting right here today. Go and talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the entire process step by step along your side, comparing quotes from America's top insurers in just a few clicks to get you the best and lowest price. And Policygenius is a trustworthy marketplace with thousands of 5-star reviews on both Google and Trustpilot from customers who found the best fit for their needs. So go and check life insurance off of your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head on over to policygenius.com/lockedonnHL, or you can simply go and click the link in description to get your free life insurance quotes today and see how much you could be saving. Again, that's policygenius.com/lockedonnHL. Segment 2, time to get into yet another Blackhawks report card here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast. And for those who have missed it, I've already dished out grades to notable Blackhawks players like Connor Bedard, Kevin Korchinski, Seth Jones, and Philip Kurashev. Make sure to go and check out those shows if you haven't done so already. Can easily find them by checking out the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel and clicking on the playlist tab there. There are all the 2023-2024 report cards neatly sorted for you to go and check them out. And everything is time-coded in the description as well, so you can easily jump to that point of today's episode. But up here next today is none other than 32-year-old goaltender Petr Mrazek, who played in his second season as a member of the Blackhawks, but this year really took over as their true number 1 goaltender, because last year, he was obviously splitting time a little bit with Alex Stalock. He also got injured, wasn't out there or available as consistently, but thank God he was for the Blackhawks this year, because they absolutely needed him, and he really answered a lot of questions about his future, not only right here with the Blackhawks organization, but just at the NHL level, because if you remember, Petr Mrazek, when the Blackhawks acquired him, was coming off of some down years, right? Wasn't really flashing that high upside like he did when he was a member of the Carolina Hurricanes. Had a pretty poor first year with the Toronto Maple Leafs, had been dealing with some nagging groin injuries, which we saw plague him as well in the first year here with Chicago. So just things were trending in the wrong direction for Petr Mrazek, and there were a lot of questions about his future, but he answered all of those questions and then some based on what he did on the ice for the Blackhawks this season. My goodness, was he excellent, and it was really fun to see Petr Mrazek have this type of year. Kind of a career year for him, or a reestablished career year, if you will. And he got a lot of action for the Blackhawks because Arvid Soderblom just never really seemed capable of being a backup. Like, the coaching staff just could never trust upon him enough to give him consistent starts. They were always kind of spotty. And as a result of that, Petr Mrazek had a lot of action, but fortunately was able to avoid those nagging groin injuries and was healthy for the Blackhawks all year long and played in 56 games, which is 16 more than his previous career high. Think about that. 16 more than his previous career high. Started 53 of those games, which is a career high as well. He's only reached 43 other times in 12 years. In terms of the win-loss record, 18 wins, the most that he's had in a season since 2019-20 with the Carolina Hurricanes. His 31 losses, unfortunately, were the most in the NHL, but getting the action that he was on one of the worst teams in the NHL, that was just going to be a natural outcome of that, and added 4 overtime losses as well. But the underlying numbers were phenomenal for Petr Mrazek. 3.05 goals against average. It's the best he's posted in that category in 3 years. Also pretty remarkable considering the amount of shots that he was facing on a regular basis, who the Blackhawks were playing on defense consistently in front of him. The 3.05 goals against average is really solid. Had a 0.907 save percentage along with it as well, which is his best as in 2 seasons as a member of the Blackhawks, the best numbers he's put up there in 3 years. He also recorded his first shutout as a member of the Blackhawks as well, and this was a stat that really stood out to me, Blackhawks fans. The even strength save percentage for Petr Mrazek this season was 918. 918 even strength save percentage. And like I said, this is a guy who was facing like 40 shots on a nightly basis. At 5-on-5, he was standing on his head night in and night out for the Blackhawks. He was excellent. Had a 6.6 goals saved above average, which is the second best of his career. Also paired that with a 54.7 quality start percentage, which is his third best that he's posted since the 2015-2016 campaign. So all across the board, a lot of really good numbers here for Petr Mrazek. And when you also consider he was 6th in the NHL in shots against, 6th in saves, 9th in minutes played, and 8th in goalie point shares, I think it makes the numbers even more impressive. Like, Petr Mrazek truly was one of the most underrated goaltenders in the entire NHL this season. As far as the good and the bad, like I said, he stood on his head night in and night out, and anytime the Blackhawks found success, out of those 23 or whatever wins that they had this year, right, like 15, 16 of them, Petr Mrazek was absolutely dazzling and was like the focal point of the victory. Basically, anytime anything went good for this Blackhawks team, Petr Mrazek was like a direct result of it. And that's why he was my co-MVP of the Blackhawks along with Connor Bedard this year, because I do not even want to think about how few wins the Blackhawks would have had if they would not have been able to roll out Petr Mrazek 56 times out of their 82 games like they did this year, and regularly saw 35 to 40 shots per game. Even when things weren't going good for the Blackhawks, more times than not, he seemingly kept his team in it. And also just love to see him. I felt like he played with a chip on his shoulder this year and played with a little bit of an edge, a little bit of a feistiness. Once he got things going early, it was like, all right, I can still do this. I'm going to go and show all of you. And also, like, seeing him mix it up, I felt like he took on a veteran leadership role in a couple of different ways this year, and really established himself as a veteran core leader here for the Blackhawks. Absolutely deserving of the contract that he got, the contract extension that he signed midway through the season. So yeah, all in all, Petr Mrazek was dazzling, prevented the Blackhawks from a lot more uglier losses. And yeah, I thought was one of the best goaltenders in the entire NHL this season. Hard to understand that when you look at the numbers and they don't really jump off the charts, but when you truly understand what was happening in front of him with the Blackhawks all year long, if you were actually watching the Blackhawks on a nightly basis, you know and you understand how good and valuable Petr Mrazek was to this team. As far as the bad, don't really know what to say. He was too good. Kept the Blackhawks from getting Macklin Celebrini. Like, you took too many penalties. He had 14 penalty minutes. I don't know. I don't really have anything bad to say about Petr Mrazek. Like, out of those 53 starts that he had, I would say he was excellent in 40 of them, 45 of them, maybe. Like, there weren't many losses you can go on the schedule, if any at all, and be like, oh, that's the Blackhawks lost that game because Petr Mrazek was terrible. Like, that just didn't happen this year. Maybe once the game against the Columbus Blue Jackets on Blackout Wednesday. Was it Black Friday? Can't remember now. But anyways, that was the Corey Perry game. Petr Mrazek was terrible in that one. I do remember that game. But other than that, like, he was on his A game night in and night out. I really don't have anything bad to say about this guy. And it feels like none of you Blackhawks fans really did either, because 59% of the voters on X voted for A, 35% of them voted for B, only 6% voted for D, and zero, not one single vote, not even one clown just trying to be a sarcastic dick, voted D/F for Petr Mrazek. So I think that's spot on. I'm giving Petr Mrazek an A. An A+. I'm giving Petr Mrazek an A+. My first A+ in terms of my report cards here for the 2023-2024 season. Go and comment down below if you haven't voted on X, or don't vote on X. You should go and follow @TalkinHockey on X so you can vote on those polls. But also, go and comment down below what grade you would give Petr Mrazek for his performance this year. Do you agree with my A+? Go and let me hear it down below in the comment section. But that's going to wrap up goaltender Petr Mrazek's 2023-2024 report card. Coming up in just a minute, though, before I close things out on today's show, I do still have to get into Mailbag Monday. First, real quick, though, I got to talk to you all about the fine folks at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience is what brings home the championship trophy, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. From superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. Plus, with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or else you'll get your money back. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. With all the parts you need at the prices you actually want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that championship trophy. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. Again, that's ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only and exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Back here on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Again, just a reminder to like, comment, subscribe. If you're tuning in through an audio platform such as Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever it may be, make sure you're constantly downloading all of those latest episodes. Rate and review the show as well if you like what you're hearing on a daily basis. And also, make sure to go and check out the new Locked On Sports Today, because Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every single league. So make sure to go and check out Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. Segment 3, before I wrap things up, let you all go and enjoy the rest of your Mondays, I do still have to get into our weekly Mailbag Monday fan segment, which I've gotten away from the last couple of weeks here. I apologize for that, but back in a big way on today's show. I got a lot of questions that I'm very excited to answer. And again, just a reminder, if you have a question, if you're watching this right here, right now, and thinking, oh, I have a Blackhawks question that I want answered on the show, go and drop that in the comment section right now, or you can DM me on any one of my social media accounts. You can email lockedonblackhawks@gmail.com. You can even hit the community tab of the Locked On Blackhawks YouTube channel. I really enjoy doing this segment every week, but it's not possible if you all don't reach out with your questions. So make sure to go and hit the comment section, my DMs, wherever it may be, and reach out with your Blackhawks questions. The first one that I'm going to be answering today comes from @RobTheRescueGuy, who asked, after they take Demidov at number 2, what players look good around the number 20 spot that would be a good fit for the team? And I do really wonder if the Blackhawks are going to stay at number 20. I just get that feeling. I really do, that they're going to make a move. That doesn't mean it's going to be at number 20, though. It could be possibly for number 34, moving back into the first round for a third time. Yeah, I do kind of get that feeling like I did 2 years ago, where the prospects I feel like I'm going to be breaking down around number 20 might not ultimately be the ones the Blackhawks are debating between, because I feel like they could move up. But there are some prospects that are a little bit down, especially if the Blackhawks do take Demidov or maybe Cayden Lindstrom at number 2. If they stick home at number 20, I do ultimately think they're going to be wanting to go with a right-handed defenseman. I think that's something they're going to want to address in this year's draft. So Henry Muse is someone that's obviously caught my eye as a right-handed defenseman who could be available at 20. Adam Jiricek, the younger brother of David Jiricek, missed most of this season with a lower body knee injury, but he could be an intriguing right-handed defenseman prospect, I think, at number 20. I haven't really gotten into the forwards yet a little bit later. Obviously, I'm most familiar with the guys at the top of the draft, but still rounding out my knowledge about guys a little bit later on in the first round, if I'm being open and honest. And that's why I'm really excited to go through all of these draft profiles here on the show, because we get to learn a little bit more about all of these prospects together. So quite honestly, in terms of like the forwards at the back end of the first round, I'm still taking in intel and learning a little bit more about their game. But in terms of defenseman, Jiricek and Henry Muse are kind of the two right-handed defensemen that I'm eyeing right now at number 20. Next up, we have at Sean Mac 27, who asked, any free agents you want? Tavo. This is like a 4-part question. And that actually goes along with my man Sam Canoe's question, who asked, who would be your dream UFA signing and who would you be content if they went out and got? Seems like waiting another year to make a big time signing would be the move. Yeah, these questions kind of coincide with one another, so I figured I'd answer them together. My dream UFA signing, Tyler Myers. Tyler Myers or Brandon Montour. I don't think they're realistic at all for the Blackhawks. Both of them are going to get paid pretty heavily after being big-time right-handed defensemen in their roles for their current teams in the midst of a Stanley Cup playoff run. But I really think the Blackhawks, to take that next step with Kevin Korchinski, I really think they need to add a top 4 right-handed defenseman that can provide some stability. And I'm sorry, Connor Murphy, you just ain't cutting it at this point in your career in terms of what you're producing on the ice, and also considering how injury prone he's been over these last few years. Connor Murphy's just not going to cut it. I really think the Blackhawks need a true top 4 right-handed defenseman in this year's free agency class. In terms of a forward, I do think Tavo is a little bit interesting. I do think they probably want to add one more piece up there, but like a Sam Reinhart, Steven Stamkos, I don't ever see those guys being realistic options for the Blackhawks. I think they're just going to get paid too much. And considering the 2025 free agent class is just absolutely stacked, I think that's when the Blackhawks are going to make their first like big time signing under Kyle Davidson's leadership as general manager. I think that timeline just makes far too much sense. So a dream free agent signing would be Tyler Myers or Chris Tanev also, I think, could be in that conversation as a right-handed defenseman. I think he's more likely than Brandon Montour or Myers because they'll probably get bigger paychecks than Tanev will. But I think one of those three is probably my dream free agent ad this offseason for the Blackhawks, because they just need to shore things up on the blue line here a little bit. Sean Mack's second question, who are you picking at number 2? I'm picking Ivan Demidov. I just don't see how the Blackhawks organization could pass up this opportunity to pair someone with Connor Bedard, who I feel like really can play the same way, plays the same style, thinks the game the same way. High octane, high thought, high skill, really good edge work, really good playmaking, a good shot. Ivan Demidov, for multiple different reasons to me. Like, if we would have gotten to see him more if he wasn't a Russian prospect, I think this would be a little bit more obvious. I just don't get how the Blackhawks would pass up that skill. So to me, the pick is Ivan Demidov at number 2, hands down. Do you see them trading up from 20 into the early teens for a D? Asked at Sean Mack 27. Absolutely. I don't know. Again, if it's going to be from number 20 or if they're going to package picks and move back in, what exactly it's going to be, I really do. I'd be stunned if the Blackhawks came out of the first round without a right-handed defenseman. I'd be really shocked about it. I'd be more shocked if the Blackhawks didn't come out with a right-handed defenseman than they would if they took Artem Levshinov over Ivan Demidov. That would be shocking, but it would be more shocking to me if the Blackhawks came out of this first round without a right-handed defenseman. I really think they're going to take one at some point in this year's draft. Next question comes from @Kane88Slat, who asked, do you think Lucas Reichel still has that potential as a high-scoring threat, or is he most likely a secondary scorer? Most likely a secondary scorer. I never really thought, I guess I did, because based on the way he looked in camp, I thought he was going to be the leading point getter for the Blackhawks this year. Like I thought he could have been a 60-point guy for the Blackhawks this year, the way that he was looking. Do I think he can still be that player? Probably not, but I do think in the right situation, he could be an effective secondary option along with some really good players like a Connor Bedard or like an Oliver Moore maybe in the future, or a Frank Nazar. Like I do think Lukas Reichel is still a top six minded guy. As to what level he is, that's what's kind of up for debate. I think you have to be a little bit discouraged based on what you saw this year, but we still saw those spurts. We still saw those little blips where he can still be effective. It's a little bit puzzling as to what kind of player Lukas Reichel could still be, but I do believe he still has top six upside at this point in his career. Next question comes from @CaptainPie00, who asked, who would you want if the Hawks don't pick Demidov or Levshinov? I absolutely think it's Cayden Lindstrom to me. I think Cayden Lindstrom would definitely be the pick if it's not one of those two. I think he is a better prospect than Kirby Dach was at that time. I think he's going to be a better player than Kirby Dach, and I think he addresses a critical need in the Blackhawks for a group of player with size and skill. So to me, for those reasons, it would be Cayden Lindstrom, if not Demidov or Levshinov. Last question I'm going to be answering here today comes from @DLPH Correct L9645. It's a heck of a name there. And again, just a reminder, if you're watching this, listening to this, and you have a question, make sure to reach out so I can answer them this time next week. The question is, if it requires packaging the number 20 pick with the high second round pick at number 34 to move up to numbers 10 through 12, who are the prospects that might slip down that you would make this trade for? Really good question here. Cole Yzerman. I'm going to be getting into his draft profile here later on in the week. Make sure to stay tuned for that. But I feel like there's a chance Cole Yzerman slips to 8, 9, 10, maybe around that area. And if that is the case, I wouldn't be shocked to see see Kyle Davidson go and make that move. They have a rapport with the United States Development Program, does the Blackhawks organization. I wouldn't be shocked to see a move like that. I also think that Carter Yakimchuk or Zane Parekh. I feel like Zane Parekh's stock has really boosted this year, so I don't see him slipping. But I could see Carter Yakimchuk potentially slipping, and I wouldn't be surprised, even though I don't think he maybe fits what the Blackhawks are looking for out of a right-handed defenseman. I think they'd like a stable defensive defender, considering what they already have in the organization. Yakimchuk is offensive-minded, but if he falls outside of the top 10, outside of the top 12, like I think there's an opportunity for the Blackhawks to just feel like, based on his skill, he's fallen too far and they potentially trade up for him. So those are kind of two guys that I'm peeping at right now. But again, once I have a little bit better of an understanding of this entire first round, I think I'll be able to answer that question a little bit better with a better understanding. All right, that is going to wrap up today's episode of Locked On Blackhawks. As always, thank you all again for tuning into the show. Be sure to go and follow Locked On Blackhawks for free right now, wherever you may be listening to your podcasts, and to go and subscribe to Locked On Blackhawks on YouTube. That way, you can get the latest episode as soon as it becomes available each and every day. As always, I'm your host, Jack Bushman. You can go and find me on X @JackBushman2. Make sure to also go and check out my strictly Blackhawks account @TalkinHockey. That way you can get all of the latest Blackhawks news and updates. So until tomorrow's episode, everyone, enjoy the rest of your days. I'll see you next time on the Locked On Blackhawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.